All right, I'm gonna check YouTube real quick.
I'm trying to lure my criminal in as well. Ah, here he comes.
I will be able to lure her easily with treats.
Okay, we're live. And look.
We're live, but we lost Bree. And there's Hermes.
Oh, he's going for it.
What a handsome young man.
Yes.
Shall I do the summoning?
Yeah, let's do the summoning. Let's wait for Bree if she's coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bree's having some
internet problems.
Yeah, it's sometimes it be like that.
See, I said she would.
Oh, she's so pretty.
She's so gorgeous.
Torty.
This is Sunshine. She is the new kitty.
So cute.
Oh, she likes the spready.
She wants that
stuff.
churro.
Yeah. I was like, the moment I pull one of these out of the bag, she will come running.
Oh.
See, I don't understand. Hermes never likes that stuff, but he loves the like kibbles that have the what's the word? Like the pillow of squishy stuff inside.
Both like churros, and they also like greenies. So because I like my blood inside my body, so I'm not like trying to brush their teeth. But so the greenies are kind of the next best thing.
Yeah.
But Luke also likes actual seafood and chicken. Leia doesn't care.
So
Hermes doesn't like fish at all. Any kind of fishy product he despises.
Some background on Sweet Sunshine here. She comes from a rescue that is here on YouTube, Kit Kat Playroom. They're located in southern New Jersey. They're a kitten rescue that does live streams. And she was the mom of a litter of 6. And for anyone who knows Kit Kat Playroom, this was the Black Icons litter, and she was Harriet formerly. She's Sunshine now, and she is doing so well, causing chaos, being cute, fancy booktube cat. I have revived my Instagram for her. The Instagram is cat pictures.
We can never have too many cat pictures.
No.
Hermes is looking straight to the webcam.
Does he see her?
No, I don't think so. I mean, he does see the screen with every one of us, so he could see her. Okay, how many is that? 3 out of 5 cats now. We just need Luke and Leia and Ava.
I think Leia ran away.
Leia decided that she wanted to look outside, and I don't know where Luke is. They'll join us at some point. They almost always do.
I don't think Ava's gonna show up unless like 2 hours from now she's like, "You have ignored me for long enough. I must go outside." So she gets antsy.
All right, so let's just do a quick round of introductions and what we're working on, and then let's get into the meat of why we're here, which is to talk about the Hugo Shortlist. So my name's Diana, my channel's Bookish Die, and I'm currently working on this scarf for a friend.
Cool.
So, yeah. Bree has left us once again. Rachel, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Rachel. My channel is Colonati. Wow, I just went blank. What do I want to say about myself?
You do all the fiber crafts?
I do all the fiber crafts, yes. I also do, I do read. I'm getting back into reading right now, though I'm not currently making booktube videos, so yes.
Kelsey.
I'm Kelsey. I'm the Fancy Hat Lady Reads on YouTube and sporadically on TikTok. The Instagram account that I mentioned is the Fancy Cat Lady Reads. Oh, someone's got zoomies. It's been so much fun watching her like get more playful and energetic the longer she's been without like kittens to nurse. I'm obsessed with her. I love her so much. Where was I? Me, not my cat. Yeah, hopefully I'll have videos soon. I have videos ready to film. I haven't been filming them. I've been playing with my new cat instead.
Which is understandable.
Yeah.
And Rhea.
Hi, hey, it's me, Rhea. My channel is The Bookfinch, and I have officially filmed a video for the first time in a year, so you might expect that in the coming week once I get it edited. Like tipping my toe back to the booktube pool. And I basically am the resident comics and manga person in these live streams.
All right. And Bree is unfortunately having some bad weather that's impacting her internet. So I don't know if she's going to be joining us for today, but if she does, we will be happy to have her. So the way this is going to work is we're going to do it similarly to how we did our recommendations video, where we're going to be starting with the two Not a Hugo's Award. We're going to be doing Lodestar and Astounding, and then we're going to go back up to talk about the fiction categories and work our way down. So without further ado, let's talk about the Lodestar. So the nominees for this year's Lodestar are, and hold on, he's here, and he's gone. And he took a ball of yarn with him. It's fine. Okay, so our nominees are A Benny Song by P. Jelly Clark, published by Starscape, Liberty's Daughter by Naomi Kritzer from Fairwood Press, Promises Stronger Than Darkness by Charlie Jane Anders from Torteen, The Sinister Booksellers of Bath by Garth Nix from Catherine Teagan Books, and Galiance, I don't know how to pronounce that publisher. To Shape a Dragon's...
I think. I could be wrong. It's British.
I know it's British. I just don't know how to pronounce it. To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Monocle Blackgoose Del Rey, and Unraveler by Frances Hardinge from Macmillan Children's Books, eligible due to 2023 U.S. publication by Amulet. There were 345 ballots cast for 178 nominees. Finalists range from 33 to 56. So,
am I the only silly idiot that didn't realize Unraveler was eligible because of American publication? I thought it was English language publication that counted, not... I'm always confused about this.
I don't know.
I'm happy to see it on the list because it's one I didn't get to when it was released, and it's probably one of the things on this entire shortlist that I am most excited to read.
Was it published previously, like in 2022 then?
Yeah, that was the UK release.
Huh. This makes me so confused because usually they are like, if it's in the English market, it doesn't matter if it's the
right, because
UK
like
or
I
US.
thought that this was just an unfair thing that happened to books that were released in the UK the year before they were released in the US, like how none of the first like 3 Becky Chambers novels made the shortlist, even though everyone loved them because American readers didn't read them until the year after they were eligible. Are the rules for the Lodestar different in this regard because it's not?
I don't know. Let me look it up. But while I look it up, I'm just going to say I am once again really annoyed with the fact that an adult book is on the Lodestar shortlist. And I think it's past time that the Lodestar category be edited, because I think Hugo voters can't be trusted to know what's YA versus like, oh, well, it feels YA and it has a young protagonist, so I guess I'll just put it there.
Which one?
To Shape a Dragon's Breath. Like, I have a feeling this is a series where because it's only been one book, but it starts where the protagonist is younger and it like follows her as she ages.
Have you read it?
I have not. It is on my list.
I want to hear from someone who's read it.
I haven't read it, but I have it checked out from the library. So I'm hoping to read a bunch of the Lodestar.
And to be clear, like, I don't want to hear from someone who's read it, like, whether they think it's YA or not. It's obviously not. I kind of want to hear from someone who's read it why everyone seems to think it's YA when it's not.
So I haven't read it, but some folks in one of the Discords I'm in have, and it like reads like it's a younger protagonist. It has the pacing of a YA book, but part of why the author initially was talking about why it's adult is in her culture, Aniquis is considered an adult. Like, she's not a teenager, or like she's not considered a youth by her culture.
Mm-hmm. I think I've said it before that the easiest way I can think of to put like an easy patch fix on the Lodestar category, which wouldn't solve the overall problem of Hugo voters not knowing what's YA and like not being on top of YA or knowing what's good in YA. But like the easy patch fix would be an eligibility requirement that the publisher would have to like confirm that it's YA in order
and I think there's also a larger conversation about the Hugo's voting population and how they're grading, and how the way the structure is really hostile to younger voters. So like, I was honestly shocked that the S&P book from Wednesday that I'm not going to talk about because of the boycott wasn't on this, because that just got like a ton of buzz last year.
Right. I was also shocked that A Study in Drowning was not on. Like, I returned that book to the library unread at one point several months ago because I was so certain, it's surely going to be on the Lodestar shortlist. I will surely get it in the voter packet.
Yet.
Yeah.
So there were books that I, like anyone who was clued into social media, would have just assumed would be shoo-ins for YA SFF awards this year that didn't make either the Lodestar or the Andre Norton Award shortlists.
Here's the thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Can we just like, because as we have established, like, and this is no shade to Hugo voter populace, but as has been established that the median age range of the Hugo voters is like going up there. It's not getting any younger. Can we also assume that not a lot of them are probably keyed in on the trends on social media of what is popular?
Like, all of us are out here on social media talking about the Hugo Awards. Like, I've been on TikTok talking about how you can vote at the Hugo Awards. I don't know what it takes to.
No, but that is the thing, that you are reaching an audience of younger people. How many of those turn to voters is a different
Very
thing.
Few,
but the existing voter base is not reached via social media.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I feel sort of strongly about bringing new people into the process.
Yes, definitely. But I think
I'm not very successful at it.
Yeah. So this is about I was going to say, I put a quote up on the screen from someone who read To Shape a Dragon's Breath that It's good for older to mid-teens, but I do think it is adult. And I think this is a book where, like, it's prime Alex Award material. So for folks who don't know, the Alex Awards are given out by the YA section of ALA, and they're specifically for adult books that have crossover appeal. So they announced the Alex Award winners. I don't know if they released the long list for that, but I would be shocked if this wasn't on the long list.
That makes so much more sense. I didn't realize the Alex Award was for that, but
yeah, and that's why I was so mad about Naomi Novik, because she's won an Alex Award and A Deadly Education was on the long list. So it's not like she doesn't know that the Alex Award doesn't exist and that her book is classified as adult. And that's the other thing that makes me annoyed is Naomi Novik set a precedent. And now people can point to
nobody challenged it. That's the problem also. She set a precedent that nobody then challenged and was allowed to happen 3 years in a row.
And she won.
Yes, that too.
I'm going to be super cynical and say, I think a lot of these are good books, but what this particular award actually is for, I think it's so muddy. Nobody can agree. And I kind of think that the point of the Lodestar is going to be pretty eroded eventually. It's not going to really be YA or middle grade SFF. It is going to become just this sort of catch-all, not a Hugo category where people stick in books that they liked but don't think are adult enough to
nominate him best novel.
Yeah. I think that's already happening.
Oh, I think that is already the case.
Yeah.
And it is disappointing. I don't read a lot of YA middle grade these days, but I see how excited people are to nominate things that are like, this is the best of middle grade, and it never makes this list.
Well, also, I will say, the award technically says young adult, so middle grade shouldn't be on here.
It's been all over the place, though. It's ranged from really young to adult. It's all over the place.
I think the Lodestar Award is in dire need of clearer guidelines, and especially as Kelsey said, that publisher needs to put their foot down. This is YA.
Yeah, I also do think that there needs to be a conversation of I understand wanting to have some sort of way to gatekeep the award, but I think there needs to be a lower tier for teens.
Yeah.
Or young adults, because $50 is a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a huge paywall. Especially if you consider the rising cost of living and other capitalist bullshit that we're dealing with right now, inflation and stuff. People barely have enough to eat. To put towards their monthly living expenses. There's no way in hell that someone unless you're middle class and have the privilege of disposable income, you are not gonna be able to put towards $50 just by snapping your fingers and thinking oh, this is something. All of us are in a pretty privileged position in that regard, that we have enough disposable income that we can do that.
Yeah. And
especially if you consider the younger you are, the less likely you are to be in a position to have that much disposable income. So if you want to entice newer voters to the Worldcon and also get people interested in Worldcon, what you need to do is it's the fan funds are not enough. You really need to have some sort of put the cost down.
So Bree says in the chat, the publishers are already involved in the acceptance process. I don't know that they are. I don't think that there's any reason for the publisher to be involved in the acceptance of this award.
I think authors are usually inform their publishers that they have been nominated.
It's on the author to accept. Yeah. That being said, when it comes to what goes in the voters packet, then the publisher's got to get involved with that. But if you did involve the publishers in something like the Lodestar, what's to say that the publisher wouldn't disagree with the classification that the author thinks it is? That happens all the time.
Well, they might, but like that's sort of how the industry works, right? Like if the book is sold as adult or as YA, that's what it is, ends up being, regardless of how
there's no incentive
it when they wrote it.
Yeah, there's no incentive for a publisher to try to disqualify a book that they publish from an award.
No, but
they won't
force them to go on record saying that that they're claiming a book is YA, right?
Yeah, so this is from Book Chats. I think money is a barrier, but knowledge of what is a pretty complex process is also a barrier to new voters, especially young voters.
I mean, the years when actually getting access to the voting system is screwed up, can you imagine?
Yeah.
I mean,
last year I already gave up.
Yeah, last year I didn't
multiple
bother
occasions
supporting membership because nominating was such an awful process for me.
I had like a full VPN setup of like had to like put up a WireGuard instance and everything, and it was a whole shit show.
Luke
is back.
All right. Does anyone have any final thoughts about the Lodestar?
Hopefully I will have more to say next week when we should be doing our regular live show, because
we are going to be doing our regular live show.
I started reading
back to this.
I started reading the Left-Handed Booksellers of London so I can read the Sinister Booksellers of Bath.
So I love that series. I love the first book and I love the second book even more. And in fact, that's the one I nominated for this award. It's on the list. So do I feel kind of ambivalent about that? Yeah, because I absolutely thought to nominate it in the Lodestar category because I didn't think it would be competitive enough in Best Novel. But if it was,
then again, we have starter villain. But anyway, and let's get into that later.
Yeah,
Astounding next.
Yeah.
All right, let us go now to the Astounding Award for Best New Writer. So our nominees are Monocle Blackgoose, first year of eligibility; Sunyi Dean, second year of eligibility; Ai Jiang, second year of eligibility; Hannah Kaner, first year of eligibility; MX Liu, first year of eligibility; and Jiranjie Zhao, eligibility extended at the request of Dell Magazines. All right, so for this, I have read from I've read from one of these authors, and I've been meaning to read from a couple. So I did nominate MX Liu because I read their novella, If Found, Return to Hell, and really enjoyed it. And I've been meaning to read their Hamlet retelling, I think it's The Death He Gave Me, because I do love a Hamlet retelling.
I can't speak to any of these except for Ai Zhang because she has a nominated novelette that I read this morning. Based on that, I think she has one previous publication or kind of standalone publication that I haven't read, but based on her novelette, I Am AI, which we'll talk about later, I'm not surprised to see her on this list.
Look at this.
The only ones I have read anything from are Sunyi Dean and Jiranjie Zhao. And I'm actually very happy that they decided to extend Zhao's eligibility for this year because, last year was...
I do wish that had been announced while nominating was still open, so that
here's the thing, I would not be shocked if people had nominated them and it was significant enough where they reached out to the magazine to ask, like,
after they knew that they would make the shortlist. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That is my speculation.
Yeah. Yeah, you do not need to eat this yarn.
But I think this is a very robust category this year.
Yeah.
Personally.
I am personally sad that Sarah El-Arifi didn't make it. I have nominated her for the last 2 years. So I wish she was on there, but that's fine.
But was last year her last year of eligibility?
Because her debut came out in 2022.
Was she on the shortlist last year?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't eat my needles. You can see her tail, and she's like being a very cute little menace to society.
Is she the last cat to make an appearance, or at least her tail?
Well, here she is.
If you squint really hard, you can see Hermes's head poking behind the sofa there.
Ma'am, you joined during a live stream.
Really
you
hard.
Be perceived. All right. Does anyone have any additional thoughts about the Astounding Award? All right. In that case,
specifically about the Astounding Award, about the overall shortlist before we get into best novel. My feelings about this shortlist this year are a little bit that I need you all to like get me excited to read some of these books. Because
I will say,
I would be excited because having read most of the fiction categories, I think there's some really good stuff in there.
Because there's a lot of things that I'm like, oh yeah, I could read that. I might like that, but I'm not like crazy pumped to pick up like most of these things. And like the Astounding Award is exemplary of that. Like most of these authors, yeah, I can imagine picking up these books to read, but I haven't read any of them, and I'm not like I need encouragement. I need people to tell me they loved these books and why I would love them to get excited to read these shortlists.
Well, I can try and get you excited for the short stories when we get there.
Yeah.
Please.
All right.
Be excited about the Lodestar. We can read some of them this week and talk about them next weekend. We will have thoughts. So
all right.
I've been very motivated. Like I have enjoyed what I've read so far, which has made me more and more excited to get to other things on this list. But having a little bit of a challenge to read things before the live shows is like, yeah.
Yeah. Hold on. I will be right back. My chat's knocked over something out.
I have Unraveler checked out from the library too. So
I have basically so many, like, I immediately went to my library, put holds on every single Hugo nominee that they have available. And suddenly I have so many.
I own a lot of them, and I have not read them, which is a problem. But anyway, best novel. Got to scroll back to the top. All right, our nominees are.
I see it started in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our nominees are The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty from Harper Voyager UK. The Saint of Bright Doors by Vajra Chandraskera from Tor.com. Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh from Tor.com/Tor UK or Orbit UK. Starter Villain by John Scalzi, Tor/Tor UK. Translation State by Anne Leckie from Orbit. And Witch King by Martha Wells from Tor.com. There were 1,420 ballots cast for 576 nominees. Finalists range from 91 to 71 nominations.
See, this I like. I like that they inform us immediately how many ballots were cast.
Yeah,
and how many nominees. It makes me excited for the long list as well.
That's something that used to only get revealed with the long list. And
I'm very happy about this.
Glasgow had made a statement prior to releasing the list that they were making a promise that they would, because of the need for transparency, they would share these stats immediately.
I hope that's something that carries through to Seattle and future World Cons, just because I like that it tells us which were the categories that people were really excited about, and also just kind of how low the nominating threshold is.
Yes, exactly.
We might also want to note in this best novel category some of the information they provided about people who declined and people who were eligible. System Collapse by Martha Wells was nominated, but she declined that nomination. And a Chinese novel, Cosmo Wings by Zhang Bo, was also nominated, but it's not eligible. It isn't published until this year. So
yeah, I think the how many minimum nominations has to be because of the scandal.
Yeah. This whole thing is in response to
Mhm.
how badly
How
the Last
much
World
you
Con
guys
bungled
did.
the.
So speaking of the Last World Con, we were talking about this pre-going live, but
yes.
I do kind of want to talk about it now because it is deeply hilarious to me. So when they announced the shortlist last week, and it was at EasterCon.
Yes.
And it turns out that the previous Hugo administrator, Dave McCarty, tried to attend EasterCon and like didn't give anyone a heads up. He flew across the Atlantic, and they are like, hey, this is not going to be a good situation for anyone. We respectfully ask you that you don't come, that we're not going to give you a membership. Just please have fun somewhere else in the UK. And he showed up, and they had to have security escort him out.
The funniest thing about this to me is that, like, obviously he must have suspected that he would be turned down for a membership if he tried to buy the membership in advance like a normal person.
Yeah, so he went to the convention itself.
Just like flew to England on the hope that he would be able to sneak in unrecognized.
He was always intending on making a scene. I mean, that's why they had to have security remove him, is because even though they explained it to him, he would not leave.
And
so.
then the other person who's
Beniello.
we can guess, but his identity was not revealed.
Pretty
in the,
sure it
in
was
the news.
Beniello.
But most likely was Beniello. But he was allowed to stay because he promised to adhere to the code of conduct that was explained to him. And apparently, speculating here, but most likely they also explained the code of conduct to McCarty, and he just flat out was just like, screw you guys. I'm gonna do what I want.
It's find out for me. It was pretty great.
It's a small thing in the grand scheme of all the horrible stuff that has happened, mainly because of Dave McCarty's decisions, but I am pleased.
I only got halfway to why this is so. Not only did he fly to England thinking he could sneak in, but then they did learn that he had flown to England and apparently inform him the day before that if he tried to show up at the door, he would be turned away. And again, he still did. Like, this is...
And not only that, but it was clear from the convention organizers that they were aware that if he was going to show up, not only was he likely to cause a scene, but his attendance would most likely cause a disturbance in the attendee side of things, because people are understandably pissed off at the man.
Like, I would not have been surprised if someone tried to beat his ass.
Yes, exactly. It was also for his own security's sake.
Some people have pretty clearly said that if they were left in a room with him, they would attempt it.
And I mean, I think he has earned so much ill will. No one would it would be like, oh, no, stop, please don't.
He's not gonna be in for years to come. I don't think anyone's gonna let him touch the Hugos.
I mean, I think he should be banned, but
yeah, blacklist him.
I'm not sure that there's a way to officially
Glasgow?
I think Glasgow will if he tries to buy a membership, Glasgow will do what they did with.
He is currently, I think, listed as an attending member on Glasgow's.
I would not be surprised if Glasgow removes that or blocks him, because again, it would be a situation that could really spiral out of control and leave him liable.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see. Why I've been waving my arm around? It's because this is a cat toy. There's been a cat chasing it.
All right. So, do we want to talk about our nominees? So, I will I have not read any of them. The other thing I will mention is I'm really disappointed how white this slate or this shortlist is, and this kind of extends to a lot of the fiction nominees in general.
I would switch out
in the shortlist.
I would switch out starter villain.
Oh yeah, starter villain does not need to be there.
Mhm.
Like,
Am I even going to read Starter Villain? I feel like I
I'm
gave
gonna give
Kaiju
it- I'm-
Preservation Society the benefit of the doubt last year,
See,
and then
here's
like
the-
I gave the Collapsing Empire the benefit of the doubt in a previous year, and both times I was disappointed. But I am not disappointed about either of these two being on the list. These are the two books on this list that I have read. I'm really happy to see both of them here. I think no one was surprised that this was on there. I was surprised to see this on the Hugo list, and this is the thing that I picked up and read right away after the shortlist was announced. I finished reading it last night. It is so interestingly weird.
Mhm.
Like it's just one of those very unique, weird books that sort of surprises you at every turn.
Uh-huh.
And like, I think it is interesting that we have a short list where like something like this and something like Scalzi are both on there.
I'm excited to try that out.
We'll see. Out of all of these nominees, so the Saint of Bright Doors is also a Nebula nominee, and it's the kind of book that I would totally see SIFWA members nominating for the Nebula Award. Like, that didn't surprise me, but I was reading it when the Hugo shortlist came out, and I was like, this is such a different type of book to show up on the Hugo shortlist.
Well, it is and isn't, because like the Locked Tomb books have all been on the Hugo shortlist, and like maybe not Gideon the Ninth, but like Harrow the Ninth and Nona. Like Nona gets that level of weird.
Maybe, yeah.
But also The Light from Uncommon Stars, and which is a really experimental book as well, has been on the Hugo. So
I just didn't realize that it had enough of a readership to make the Hugo. Like I'm.
Well, I think like as you can see, the nominating threshold isn't like super high. Like there were 1,420 ballots cast, and the lowest one, the finalist range from 91 to 172.
Yeah, so
they got 100
you could
nominations
get in
submitted.
with less than 100.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not surprised to see Translation State by Lecky here.
No, that one. So I will say, like, thinking about what was going to be on the short list, I was pretty sure Scalzi was going to be on there, because I feel like he's like, for him, his books are like, well, I want to add one more. Let's just put Scalzi. Like, I honestly think that's his position.
That's when you leave the spot empty.
I mean, you would think, Rhea, you would think. But I'm interested to see the Emily Tesh one, because I've heard mixed things about it, and I really liked her first novella, but I was more mixed on the second one.
I am so intrigued, because that book clearly must have a lot of fans, because I keep seeing it show up places, but every actual review I've seen of it from someone I follow has been negative, or like middle to negative.
So this is what I have some opinions on, actually.
Yeah?
I have read all of the novels in this category except for this one, because I DNF'd it within the first 50 pages. I was very excited for it because I loved the Green Man duology.
Yeah.
And as soon as I found out that Tesh was writing a science fiction novel, I was like, heck yeah. I couldn't take it. And partly that's because of the topic. I mean, there are content warnings at the beginning of the book for a reason. There's things like, forced pregnancy and stuff like that in it. It's very much about that. And the main character is a young woman who is from an extremely toxic society that she refuses to believe there could be anything wrong about it. And it got to me so fast. I could not bear reading from her perspective. It was like reading from the perspective of a female incel almost. And I know that the story is about her having all of her ideas about the world shattered, and she learns the truth of the world and everything, but I could not take it.
See, I am very happy that I am presented with this information now before I have the book in my hands, so I have the wherewithal to prepare myself emotionally.
I think that's
for the
why I
content.
bounced so hard off of it, is I started reading it at a time when just political discussions, Roe versus Wade, everything, like the whole concept of like forced pregnancy and, you know, anti-abortion, everything was a very sensitive subject, you know.
I mean,
But I didn't expect it to be so incredibly different from the other things I had read by her, and it is completely different. Not just a different genre, but what it's tackling and the tone of it, the way that the character feels when you're reading about her, it's just completely different. So I think a lot of people have been talking about it because it is incredibly thought-provoking. I think it's very challenging because of that. You may read the entire novel and still really not like the main character or not agree with her decisions or whatever. So I don't think it's a bad book, but I feel like there are going to be extremely mixed feelings about it when people finish reading it.
Yeah.
The book that I'm surprised that made the list, like, or rather I'm surprised, is the Chakraborty one, because I knew that it came out last year, but I have heard no one talk about it.
Everyone on TikTok loves it.
Okay.
Here's the thing. I'm not on TikTok. I'm 37.
So I binge read this book this past week. It was the only one that I hadn't read after the shortlist came out. And I will say this is the hidden gem that I have found on the shortlist so far.
Oh, thank goodness. This is what I need to get me excited. I need you to pump me up to read this book, because I think you and I felt similarly about City of Brass being sort of just meh and underwhelming.
I completely skipped this book. So when this book initially came out, I saw a lot of hype for it, actually. A lot of people that I know really had enjoyed the first series by Chakraborty were on it and said it was amazing. But I was very underwhelmed by City of Brass. It just wasn't my thing. So I never thought I would pick this up and read it. Well, I decided to binge it for this live show. And it is delightful.
Can you read it without...
delightful so badly? Oh, good.
So
can you read it without having read the previous?
Things. It involves like necromancy and people die, but it is literally about a female pirate captain in I think it's 15th century Middle East, basically. A lot of it takes place in around Yemen, I believe. And yeah, it's Amini Al-Sarafi, and she's narrating her adventures. She retired for interesting reasons, and now 10 years later, she's pulled out of retirement to go on an adventure, and it's great. I mean, I think the thing I really enjoyed about this is that it is very much meant to be about, it's very much a book about being a mother, being an older woman, and in a society that, thinks you're old and just useless by the time you're 40. But that, this main character, she's so different and she still wants to have adventures. She makes it work. But there is commentary on being a woman in the society, being a female pirate, having a child, deciding, do you want to go on adventures and almost die, or do you want to live and go home to your family, So it is great. I listened to it on audiobook, and I highly recommend the audiobook. It is performed incredibly well. It's not just narrated, it is truly performed. And there are some ways that they did it to kind of make it clear that Amina is actually telling the story, and she's interacting with other people while she's telling the story. So she'll move away from the microphone when she's talking aside to somebody else who's prompting her or whatever. It was great. I loved it.
Yay.
Okay, yeah, I'm interested in that.
I am looking, that I think is going to be, I'm reading some stuff for the Magical Readathon, but I think that might be the first Hugo novel I pick up.
I'm pretty sure that Rhea will really enjoy this one.
Oh, okay. Well, I always enjoy older women protagonists
Now,
very much.
Amina is great,
Especially if
but
they
I will
kick ass.
throw in that the side characters are also fantastic. I loved Dalila. You'll know Dalila is the mother of poisons.
Oh,
Great side character.
I'm very excited now.
The kind of friend who's like, "Do you just want me to poison this guy for you?"
Oh, I will be that kind of friend too.
All right. Do we have any other thoughts about the novel shortlist?
I think we can move to best novella.
All right. Let me pull that up. All right. Best novella. Our nominees are Life Does Not Allow Us to Meet by Heiji, translated by Alex Wooden from Adventures in Space, new short stories by Chinese and English science fiction writers. Mammoths at the Gate by Nevo from Tor.com. The Mimicking of Known Successes by Malka Older from Tor.com. Rose/House by Arcady Martin from Subterranean. Seeds of Mercury by Wang Jinkong, translated by Alex Wooden from Adventures in Space. And Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher from Tor/Titan UK. There were 962 ballots cast for 187 nominees. Finalists range from 106 to 186.
First thing I want to point out that clearly, even though best novella has less ballots, but since it has like clearly there's a bigger competition in like which books get to the shortlist, because the nominee pool is also split more, because it has 187 as opposed to the 576 nominees for best novel.
Yeah.
So there are less potential nominees competing for less votes. So that is why the range is also tighter.
Yeah, this is one where I've actually read some of the nominees, which makes me happy. I'll also say that it is really refreshing that half the nominees are not Tor. I highly appreciate that.
Yes. Yes. Right.
I feel like it's been a really long time since we've seen short fiction nominees from like an anthology.
Yes.
Because I mean, usually like in this category and down ballot, there's just a lot of stuff from like Uncanny and Clark's World and stuff like that. So I'm not trying to be cynical here, but the fact that two of these are from a dual Chinese-English science fiction anthology, and the Chinese ones made the shortlist, I think that it was a recommendation from somebody somewhere about what was available and what had been translated into English.
Right. So. I'm happy to see that. I kind of wish there had been better recommendations going around last year for like what had been translated and like might be eligible again due to having English translation. Sweetie Sunshine.
So I have read two of these nominees. So Mammoths at the Gates, obviously by Nevo, very good. That like I have to admit I'm biased. I'm at this stage I'm a Nevo stan. So like my opinion on Nevo's works should always be taken with a grain of salt, because like the hype levels are up here.
Why are we eating paper, my sweetheart?
But I will say that for me, Mammoths at the Gates, like I feel like Into the Riverlands, which was the previous one, kind of like split the fandom, so to speak, because it is so heavy on the wuxia elements. And I think Mammoths at the Gates is kind of like a return to the previous like
hopefully this time I will actually get around to reading the second book before I read the fourth, because like I skipped When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain to get to Into the Riverlands last year, and I still haven't read it, so like I still have a hole in this series that I need to read before
you can read them in any order, except that you should start with the Empress of Southern
and
Fortune. Other than that, like
I do think reading When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain before Mammoths at the Gate works, because the reason why her bird, or their bird whose name I can't remember.
Always Brilliant.
Always Brilliant is absent in book 2. You learn more about in book 4.
Yeah.
I will say, I've read all the Tor novellas here, and I think if I had to rank them, Mammoth at the Gate would be first, with Mimicking of Known Successes would be second. And I enjoyed the Teen Kingfisher one, but it was not like a standout novella for me last year.
It's so easy to like compare it side by side with Nettle and Bone, because that was the previous T. Kingfisher fairy tale release from Tor, and it's just not as good as Nettle and Bone.
Like, I think it was fine, and like it's not a travesty that it was nominated, but at this point it would be solidly middle of the pack for me.
Mm-hmm. This is the only one from this category that basically left no impression on me. I'll be honest, I kind of forgot at one point that I've read Thornhedge. I'm a big Ursula Vernon fan, and it did not make any impact on me whatsoever.
I cannot say on others, but like the Mimicking of Known Successes for me was just okay. It was
for me, I liked it, but for me, like, we talk about cozy fantasy and cozy sci-fi, and for me, those like both Mimicking of Known Successes and Imposition of Unnecessary Obstacles were cozy for me, because I love mystery books, and it like harkened back to the mysteries I read growing up. Yeah. Kind of like Marple or Poirot, like where like, you know, they are solving a murder, but it's like not, it's a lot of focus on the relationships and like the world around them. And so for me, that's way more cozy than Legends and Latte, which is speedrun capitalism.
See, I like the characterization and also the world of Mimicking of Known Successes, but I think where it falters is the execution of the mystery, because it's kind of like very plodding for a long period of time, and then you get to the end and it doesn't stick the landing of the mystery. Like, it just kind of comes and is
right. It feels a bit like a book where everything about the plot is there to serve the world building, as opposed to vice versa. And I don't particularly mind that, but I can see how someone would.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the characters and the way it was written, and I really loved the world. But I had a really hard time understanding exactly what was going on with the mystery plot, because I couldn't quite visualize some parts of the setting. Like, it just didn't click with me about, like, you know, going on the different rail lines or lines and platforms and stuff. I was like, wait a minute, how, what? I could have used a map.
Also, I think that some stuff was just not established before Older needed to establish it in the scene. Oh, now we have this thing.
Yeah.
So I do the like foreshadowing was not really like there.
It reminded me a lot of Sherlock and Holmes stories, that you just don't see a lot of the clues because you're not looking at it from Sherlock Holmes' perspective. You're looking at it from Watson's, and he doesn't catch it. So you have to have that moment later in the story where Sherlock gets up on a soapbox and says, well, this is what I noticed, but the reader was never clued into that, you know. I did like, though, that what's their name? Mosa is the investigator. What is
Platy?
Platy. There was a moment in this book where Platy was like, "Oh my God, you could have just asked me instead of hoping that I would figure this thing out. Like, you don't need to do that. You could just ask me. I would have come, and it would have been a lot more straightforward than this."
Yeah.
Don't withhold so much information.
All right. Do we have any other thoughts about the novella category?
I have read all of the others as well. I'm torn. I think the two translated Chinese stories are interesting. I'm not sure how competitive they will be against things like Mammoth at the Gates and T. Kingfisher and stuff like that, but they were interesting. Seeds of Mercury is actually a pretty old story. I want to say it's from like the 90s, and this is its first translation.
Oh, fascinating.
It is interesting to me because it's about the creation of like non-carbon based life. A scientist manages this, bequeaths the scientific experiment to a relative, and that person has to figure out how to keep this life alive. And basically, the answer is send it to Mercury. Those are the ideal conditions for this life. Then it gets sort of entangled with a billionaire who funds the project and wants to go along for a ride. I thought the ending of this was a bit enigmatic to me, like what was the ultimate point of the story, but I found the concept quite interesting. The way that it presents like national and global opinion about this project, about the discovery, creation of another life form, it surprised me that it wasn't what I would expect to see in like a Western publication. So I don't know. I could tell it was kind of an older story though, just because of how it dealt with some of the issues. And then Life Does Not Allow Us to Meet. I'm not sure what this one wanted to be. I think, so you might be able to tell from the title, it's ultimately mostly about a relationship, a man and a woman who met while training to basically go through wormholes and establish pioneer bases on other planets. And then they are separated and the woman dies due to an accident. And like 20, 30 years later, the man is like the chaperone for a couple of younger people who are going to try to reattempt the mission that she died on, I think. Some of this doesn't hang together very well. In fact, I thought there might have been some mistakes in the translation. Some of the locations of things mentioned seemed impossible. I was like, wait, you're going to this place, but you already established that this other place is in a completely different like galaxy. Why did they travel to this place but then are headed to this other planet?
Galaxy is far away.
So they're doing wormhole travel. And I don't know how to explain that briefly, but I got kind of confused about what the mission actually was and why they were going to where they were. But they're basically trying to recontact a pioneer settlement that had lost contact with their main project. And then it turns into like, oh, we can never really be together, but can we? And a lot of people die.
Okay.
Yeah.
In feline news, Sunshine has just, I was over there watching her. She jumped up onto the really good, like, view watching windowsill for the first time. It's the first time I've seen her up there. And I'm happy that she discovered it. It's such a good little cat perch. She was watching things out there.
So anyway, I think both of the finalists in this category that are from Adventures in Space are worth reading. They're interesting. I'm not sure. I've seen some commentary online that some people thought that other stories from this collection should have made the shortlist instead. I forget the names of them right now, but yeah.
Well, then they should have nominated.
Didn't one other story from this collection make it in one of the other categories, or
Yeah, Answer with
Novelette.
Journey is in the short story category. So,
Is that one also in the Novelette, or am I?
I think Novelette is something else. No, Novelette is none of those.
Oh, yeah, best short story. Okay.
All right, are we ready to move on to best Novelette?
Yes.
All right.
I think so. I have read one of these.
Best Novelette, our nominees are I Am AI by Ai Jiang, from Shortwave, Introduction to the 2181 Overture 2nd Edition by Gu Shi, translated by Emily Jin in Clark's World. Ivy Angelica Bay by C.L. Polk from Tor.com. On the Fox Roads by Neve Vo from Tor.com. One Man's Treasure by Sarah Pinsker from Uncanny Magazine. And The Year Without Sunshine by Naomi Kritzer, also from Uncanny Magazine. There were 755 ballots cast for 212 nominees. Finalists range from 40 to 117.
So as we can establish, it's a very short bar to clear to nominate a novelette. If you know the word count for novelette and can actually ascertain which stuff you read are in the novelette category.
Yeah,
which is always the hardest for me.
Yeah. I have not read any of them, so I will defer to those who have.
I'm gonna guess, Rhea, that the one that you have read is On the Fox Roads.
No, actually, not. I have read Introduction to 2181 Overture 2nd Edition by Gu Shi.
I would have seen you jump on the Niveau.
I would have, but you know, it took me longer. It took me a longer time to read. So I've had a little bit of word processing issues. So I have started with the ones that have audio files available as well. So I basically listen to them on audio while reading the text. So that is why I have not gotten to the ones that have been on Tor.com, because those do not have audio audio files. So I need to be clearer headed before I get to those. Yeah. But the Introduction to 2181 Overture 2nd Edition it's interesting because it's basically a first-person narrator reading a book and reacting and commentating on the book. About I
think it's supposed to actually be like an introduction to the book.
Yeah.
But it's kind of
and then by the end you kind of are connected to why she is reading this specific book and what is the connection to her specifically. And I actually thought that it was stronger in the beginning when it was just like someone basically annotating a book. And then when it gets into the climax of like, okay, here's how it connects to everything, that's when I think it was the weakest. I also thought that there was a funny kind of meta narrative point where someone was like, it was something like only science fiction authors will be able to like figure this out, and then the author inserts herself into the book as a character.
Yeah.
I thought that the whole idea of because the whole premise of the story is like cryosleep is essentially available as an option for people. So it talks about the ethics of cryosleep, the like societal impact, who can afford this technology, how it affects culture, etc., etc. It was an interesting story.
I think so. Having had a little bit of time to reflect on this one, I feel like the theme about it that hit most strongly for me was what it said that this technology that sounds like it's amazing also has some severe drawbacks, and the implications it has for this absolute breakdown in society between families, like parents and their children. It doesn't just mess with people's, physical ages and allows them to kind of travel to the future. Part of that process is basically completely legally disconnecting yourself from your family.
I took copious notes when I was reading this, so because I took, where was it?
But I think that theme it hits home because it's a way of kind of talking about how the technological innovations we're experiencing now are affecting our relationships and affecting our children and things like that. And I think that's kind of the tonal shift in the story as it goes from describing like the overall societal breakdown, and then it talks about how the author of this introduction to the book, what her experience personally with this is, which is different, but still,
I thought one of the quotes that I wrote down when I was reading this was, and this is from the middle of the quote, but it's like they're putting their hopes anywhere but the present reality. Is the idea of like this cryo sleep, that you're kind of like going to cryo sleep in the hopes that there's something better in the future. And I actually think that like as someone who has struggled a bit with like, you know, depression and stuff, that's one of the things that I noticed myself, is that I would go to sleep at times in order to wake up in a better reality. And that kind of like brought to mind as well that you're so disconnected from the present, and you're so disconnected from culture and like your community, that then you kind of like seek a temporary, like drastic solution.
Yeah. I think so. Novelette is actually one of like the strongest categories for me. I think that basically all the nominees here could equally win, and I would not be surprised. They're incredibly different from each other, though. Yeah. I Am AI by Ai Jiang is, I think it's kind of similar to Overture 2181 in that it's talking about, it's clearly commentating on a social issue as a result of like technology and the economy and capitalism and stuff like that. I think mostly it's about kind of like the technological equivalent of burnout in a society that's extremely, well, eating people up and chewing them up and spitting them out. It's like a future that people work themselves to death for a monopoly corporation, and it's about the people who are doing everything they can to not go work for that corporation, and how much they're willing to give up of themselves and their humanity to succeed in the world. The main character is mostly robotic, and her battery is dying. She needs a new battery. So she's trying to not die every day from low battery, but also she could get rid of her heart and replace it. So what does that mean? And I see there's some pretty high praise for that particular one. I liked it. It didn't hit me in the feels quite as much, but like I said, on the strength of this one alone, I can see why Ai Jiang is in the Astounding category as well.
I'm looking forward to reading all of these. Maybe this month, most likely next month.
My goal is to read Novelette nominee every day this coming week.
Yeah, you can totally read I Am AI in like an hour or two. It's like 50 some odd pages. So worth noting, like the Hugo voter packet is not out yet, but almost all of these are available in one way or another. I did buy the Adventures in Space ebook. It's like $5 for the ebook here in the US, and you get 3 of the nominees in that. And I also purchased I Am AI because it's a pretty inexpensive ebook. So yeah, I feel like the availability of this year's shortlist is part of why I'm so excited to actually read them. My personal favorite in this one, like I don't think I would be disappointed if any of these won, but The Year Without Sunshine by Naomi Kritzer, and I see Carrie in the comments is also saying that it's her favorite. I love this, and so I tend to just really love the tone and the topics of Kritzer's short stories. I think there's a reason why she's pretty much a staple in the short fiction categories these days. She deserves it.
Well, I have some opinions when we get to the short story category.
Well,
Okay.
that is up next. So
Yeah.
Are we done with Novelette?
Yeah.
All right. So next on our walkthrough of fiction is Best Short Story. And our nominees are Answerless Journey by Han Song, translated by Alex Wooden, Adventures in Space. Better Living Through Algorithms by Naomi Kritzer in Clark's World. How to Raise a Kraken in Your Bathtub by P. Jelly Clark and Uncanny. The Mausoleum's Children by Aliette de Bodar from Uncanny. The Sound of Children Screaming by Rachel K. Jones in Nightmare. And Tasting the Future Delicacy 3 Times by Bao Shu in Galaxy's Edge Volume 13, Secret Room in the Black Domain. There were 720 ballots cast for 612 nominees. Finalists range from 27 to 69. Nice.
27?
Yeah, it's a really low threshold.
I mean, there are almost as many nominees as ballots cast.
Yeah.
So what I mean when we say the short fiction market is really, really fractured. Like, it's just, it's so hard.
It will be very interesting to see the full stats on the long list for this.
Yeah, short story was for me the most interesting, just because there's so many nominees, because everyone has their own view of what is Hugo worthy for short fiction. There's just so much more diversity, I think.
I will say that I have read 4 of the short story nominees so far, and all of this is a strong category for me. I did not think that any of the stories that I read was like bad or any, like, each of them had something. I wrote so many notes on each of these stories.
We should probably talk about this category, and I should just sit it out because I read them all, and I don't particularly like this category.
I like this category. Well, first of all, I could talk about the Better Living Through Algorithms by Naomi Kritzer. So this is very interesting because it's like it starts out a certain way, and there's this sort of lifestyle wellness app that people start using, and it starts out like kind of with this idea that you, like, at least for me, based on how social media is often viewed and how much like privacy issues and stuff and security issues are talked about in terms of social media, I was thinking that this story will go in a certain direction, and then it didn't. It basically talks about this idea that you could use these sorts of apps in an anti-capitalist way to build community and for mutual aid. And basically what happens is that when corporate interests finally when corporate interests kind of like manage to push through to the app, that's when it starts to get worse and people start losing interest and stuff, because suddenly it starts being like shovelware and all of that stuff. And as someone who works in the like tech industry, on my day-to-day job, I think these kinds of stories are really interesting because it's like because I have a certain idea about tech based on like my day-to-day work. So it's very interesting in terms of like fiction, how authors interpret that world. And I think that Naomi Kritzer actually does that very well. Like she's always very on point with the commentary on technical stuff, while also bringing it like making it very easily accessible to a non-techie crowd. So I thought that this was actually really not like, it was a wholesome story. It's kind of like this idea that this is what we could have if people weren't shitty.
So this is my pick for this category. It's the one that I genuinely enjoyed and got me thinking about things. And I have to say that my emotional reaction to this story was, oh my God, I need that app. And then the end of the story, I went, oh God, this is why we can't have the app.
Yeah, this is exactly, we can't have the app.
I was like,
because
oh my God.
People.
But like, not to give too much away, but if you've ever started using an app that you really love, and then over a couple of years, it just becomes soulless and difficult to use, and suddenly become ads and premium memberships and everything, and like, it is dead.
Yes.
It's dead. And you had all that excitement. It was genuinely helpful before, and then corporate interest, it sells out because
money. Exactly. And
money.
This was commentary on that. It was really good. My favorite story for this category, like I have only read 4 of them. So my favorite story so far is actually The Sound of Children Screaming by Rachel K. Jones.
Oh, I'm so interested in that because I've really liked her fiction before. I was unaware of this story because Nightmare Magazine is not a publication I follow. So I didn't
it's
know
horror.
that she published this.
The story is horror.
This is horror. It's a horror fairy tale. There's fairy tale aspect
to it. That's the genre of horror that I can actually get into, though.
It's a horror portal fantasy.
Oh, goodness.
And I think, Kelsey, it's very much something that you would enjoy, but there's heavy content warnings for gun violence and commentary on school shootings. Because this story takes place during a school shooting. And it's like segmented into this, like, it also reminds me of The Nutcracker, especially with the mice. Like, there's this, when they go to the other portal world, there's this mouse character who's called Sir Miles, and he reminds me of the Rat King, because in The Nutcracker you have the rats and they take the children, and this very much has that Nutcracker vibe in terms of the like rats. And yeah, I thought that this was really good. It kept me hooked the entire time. And the open-endedness. It kind of gives you like certain kind of hope that things might end well, but also there's this like nagging feeling that things might go really bad. I really enjoyed this. This is my pick for the category.
The story could potentially be hopeful. I did not have that reaction when I read it. And maybe it's because the whole entire time I was reading it, I was just very aware that this is about a school shooting. This is kids and their teachers go hide in the closet during a school shooting, and what happens next.
Do you know how... So, for those of you who are not in the know, we in Finland we just had a school shooting this week.
Yeah.
It was awful. So reading this,
yeah,
after that, and especially considering the age of the shooter in question, it was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I will say that this was very like rough reading.
It is because I think that's why it kind of got me down emotionally. As if I don't know that much about public school systems and how they deal with this stuff, but it's just the prevalence of drilling for school shootings and how much that has changed everything about going to school and being a teacher. And it just I found the story to be very horrific in that sense, because it's talking about something as if like all the characters, it's just completely normal to them. They know it's going to happen at some point, and that just it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, but at the same time, I feel like it's very apropos of the horror genre. Like, it talks about a real life horror and then kind of adds to it with the portal element and stuff. I thought that this was excellent. And I would be really happy if it won the category, because horror rarely wins these awards. But this was like really good, and especially if you like the sort of Grimm's fairy tales and this kind of really dark fairy tales, it has that vibe. The other story that I liked was How to Raise a Kraken in Your Bathtub. Which is like, this is also very hard to read, because you have a main character, you have a point of view character who has a very white supremacist worldview. Like, he's full on orientalist, sexist, chauvinist, all of that. Bill has a very eugenicist worldview.
But it's okay, because he's a man of ambition.
He's a man of ambition, yes. It makes everything okay.
Middle-aged white man, yeah, that sort of thing.
It's basically a guy the premise is a guy sees an ad on on a penny dreadful, and it's a get rich scheme, and he's like, what could go wrong? I'm a man of ambition. Basically, I'm gonna raise a kraken in my bathtub, and what could go wrong?
There's nothing could go wrong. There could be no consequences or unforeseen issues with this because
Yes,
I'm
yes.
doing it. It's gonna be fine.
And then everything goes wrong. Everything that he did and did not think could go wrong goes wrong, and it's the whole story could be just characterized with the word, oh, the hubris.
I would appreciate a follow-up story that delved more into
The prince.
the prince, yes, I say
Yes.
the scam. As
Can
well
I
as
get
the
a
merman.
novel out of the prince?
Yeah,
Yes, please.
I became very curious about the merman, especially
Yes.
like in that city and stuff.
Yeah,
by
I
the
want
ocean.
I want a whole book about the merman society. Thank you very much.
You know what I want? I want the wife to have that wake up moment and then go like on this whole thing with the side characters in the story.
Yes, but also I want to know more about the prince and the whole resistance stuff. It's a Captain Nemo character, essentially,
Uh-huh.
going around in his submersible, freeing oppressed peoples of various British colonies. But yeah, those are the ones that I've read. I mean, the Mausoleum's Children also I read, but to be honest, I did not really vibe with it. I think that is the story that I found the least engaging. In like, it has interesting stuff to say because it's essentially about exploitation of child labor and like how you can leave an exploitative situation, but unless you deal with the trauma of it, you are never actually free of what happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an interesting and important theme, but for some reason I just wasn't engaged with it. I felt the characterization was a little lacking, and half of the story I was like, okay, what is happening?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I've really enjoyed some of the Shuyo universe stories, but I know just from past experience, the short stories in this world can be incredibly hit or miss for me. And I think it's because in that format, it is so short. It's a
yeah,
very complex world. The stories are about pretty complex emotional issues. And I do usually feel like characterization, some explanation gets pushed to the side with all those details crammed in there. I think in a longer form with a bit more space to explore the main character,
yeah,
this one would have been a lot better for me.
yeah. I think if it was even a novelette,
Mm-hmm.
I think there could have been more space to actually like delve deeper into the main character's inner world, and especially her, because she has this conflict with her like the friend she left behind, and I just
Mm-hmm.
felt that emotional through line was not really developed enough for me to like fully care, because like there was just not enough space to go there, to go deeper. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I haven't read Ansel's Journey or Tasting the Future Delicacy 3 times because I don't have the Adventures in Space, and the other one I think isn't translated into English yet.
Yeah.
So Answerless Journey is the only thing I've read so far from the shortlist that I just frankly did not like. It's written in a particular kind of voice. It's one of those people wake up without memory on a spaceship and they're trying to figure out what's going on, but they just devolve into chaos and maybe they're going to kill each other. And what is the point of all this? And no, I didn't like it.
Fair enough. All right. Any other thoughts about short stories, or are we ready to move on to series?
Kelsey, give us The Sound of Children Screaming a chance. I think out of all of these, that is probably gonna be your jam.
I mean,
even if it is
I
horror.
would be surprised if you told me that, just knowing that like it's a horror story from Nightmare Magazine, but I'm not surprised because I have read Rachel K. Jones before and I know I like her writing.
And it has mice. The mice are terrifying, but this still it has fairy tale mice characters.
Uh-huh.
All right. Moving on to best series. So our nominees are The Final Architecture by Adrian Tchaikovsky from tor.com/Orbit UK, The Imperial Rocked by Anne Leckie from Orbit, The Last Binding by Freya Marsky from tor.com/Tor UK, The Laundry Files by Charles Stross, tor.com/Orbit UK, The October Day series by Sean McGuire, and The Universe of Julia by Aliette de Bodar. I'm not reading all of the ones, but it is a wide-ranging universe. There were 677 ballots cast for 228 nominees. Finalists range from 79 to 117 ballots. So I'm just going to be completely upfront. I'm voting for the October Day series because it is, I think, a really good example of long-form storytelling. I really enjoy the books. And that way we can clear that perpetual slot for someone else.
Maybe this year I will finally read some more of the books. I've only read the first one. I read it years ago. I'm not going to reread it, even though I don't remember anything. But like last year, I did think I did think that like every year the October Day books were nominated, I would like read one more, but I missed last year. I didn't get around to it. So I can read 2 of them this year.
Yeah, I will say, like, I deeply love this series. I think the first 2 books are not that great. And I think the series doesn't pick up till book 3, but there's so much
stuff. I will try to get to book 3 this time.
Yeah. There's just so much stuff that's necessary in books 1 and 2 that I like cannot recommend skipping them because
I did read book 1. I just don't remember it, and I may have to like DM you somewhere to like ask you to remind me of relevant plot points. Because
I will also, yeah, there's also a wiki that is pretty solid, but there are spoilers for future books.
What I could really use is just a plot synopsis of book 1 so that I remember.
October Day gets turned into is a half human PI that gets
don't give it to me here with like people watching. Like give it to me later so you can give me all the spoilers that I've forgotten.
Anyway, yeah, so I'm voting for that. I am also interested in basically the 2 that I'm not like just have zero interest in are the Adrian Tchaikovsky and the Laundry Files ones. Like those I'm just like.
So I my 2 cents on this category. I'm kind of tired of Laundry Files and October Day always taking up slots.
Vote for October Day then, so she wins, and then it will be done.
I have never read any of the books though, so I'll just say that I'm just feeling fatigue from basically it feels like the same nominees year to year.
For me, I was thinking that for this year, I have no plans on reading all of the series, but I'm planning on reading some on each so that I can decide based on the vibes how I feel about the category. I mean, Imperial Raj obviously has like what's the word, head start, because that's the series where I have read stuff from. And I've liked it. I've liked it a lot.
That's the only series I'm completely caught up on in this category.
I need to actually go back and read those because I read Ancillary Justice like ages ago, and then I never continued the series.
I have read the first 2. So like my goal now in the time between now and whenever the Hugo packet is released is to make progress on the other 2 that I have. Can anyone just tell me if I am crunched for time with my Hugo reading, is there any particular reason to read this one before reading Translation State?
No.
So if I'm crunched for time and I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish the whole series, I can skip over this one, even though I think this might be the one I'll like the most.
I mean, I guess you could read Can you read Translation State without reading the rest of the Imperial?
Let's put it this way. I read it without having refreshed my memory of the trilogy in any way, and it's been a number of years since I read those books, and I thought it was completely comprehensible.
Okay, but I have read the first 2 books, and I don't want to be spoiled for things in the 3rd book by reading something that takes place chronologically after it, if you know what I mean.
Place chronologically after, and if memory serves, a character that's relatively major in the final book is a character in Translation.
So I do think I need to read this first, just because I have been reading this series.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get spoiled for anything in the finale of the trilogy.
I do think that Provenance is probably one that you would enjoy.
Everyone has been telling me this since it was released. I know.
I've always thought about going back and rereading it because I thought I would like it even more when rereading it. It's a nice standalone. I think, so out of the series, like what I might try to catch up on, I only have the last book in the Final Architecture series to read, but I'll be honest, I'm not thrilled about this particular trilogy from Tchaikovsky.
I know nothing about it. Tell me what it is.
Human civilization and a lot of other species are threatened by a mysterious planet-killing species, and they're trying to figure out how to stop them.
Okay.
And yeah.
Here's my thing with Adrian Tchaikovsky, because everything of his I've read has been because of Hugo nominations. So I read Elder Race was the first thing of his I read, and then I read Children of Time. I only got to the first book, but that was because of the Best Series nomination, and then I read Ogres. So those are the 3 things I have read of his, all of them for Hugo nominations. And like over the course of those 3 books, I started to just notice patterns in the themes of those books and the, stories he seems really interested in telling. And I sort of feel like, okay, I've got that now. I don't need to read any more of those. Does he have anything else that's not about this particular set of themes? Mm-hmm. And so is the Final Architecture, this is so hard to ask. Is it more of the same in terms of the sort of science fictional concepts that he's playing with in those other books, in terms of like, scientific experiments on sentient populations and uplift or whatever?
The answer to that is like, no, it's not like the Children of Time series in that. And I think it's part of the reason why I don't like it as much. It seems much more traditional, big space opera war type of story, which has been done before in many different ways. I feel like a lot of it is relatively familiar. I could feel the story beats. That's why I haven't read the 3rd one, because I felt very disappointed by the predictability of the 2nd book. I had to really push myself to actually finish that one. And I'm kind of person, I love his big chunky sci-fi novels. I will always pick them up. But there's something particular about the series that just doesn't tickle my fancy. And yeah, he does repeat a lot of like themes and topics, and I tend to find them very interesting. Things like in the Doors of Eden and the Children of Time series, what he wants to really get in there and geek out about, I love those things. But I don't feel like he's doing that so much, or not those themes, in the Final Architecture series.
Interesting, because I'd be curious to like read something by him where he's doing something different.
Yeah. If you wanted to read the first book, I liked it enough. Like, I thought it was going to be a interesting series. It was just with the 2nd book that I kind of went, yeah, this is not scratching that itch anymore. So.
Okay. Interesting.
I'm also interested to read more of the Julia books. Aliette the Bedard is one where I've read some of her stuff, but I haven't read this universe. And I've kept hearing good things about it. So I'm excited.
I think the two Subterranean Press originally published novellas are probably the best things to start with. The Tea Master and the Detective and Seven of Infinities. Those are what I would recommend to get into the Juya universe, personally.
See, I was just browsing the stack, so I picked up this one.
That one's good. I liked that one. I'm not sure I would recommend it as like the best place to start.
Mm-hmm. I've really enjoyed the novellas in the Shuya universe. Things like On a Red Station Drifting, good. Yeah.
I really liked On a Red Station Drifting. I remember not liking Citadel of Weeping Pearls quite as much, but it's also interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the novellas are all really good.
Okay.
Yeah. I would like to catch up on some of her recent publications in this universe, but the Shuya universe has been around for so long and has so much short fiction in it. I think it's kind of impossible to catch up on it now.
I did finish reading the new one, A Fireborn of Exile, and I didn't like it as much as I was hoping to. I didn't like it as much as The Red Scholar's Wake.
It's time for Yarn Chicken.
Oh no!
Now, true yarn chicken, or you just don't want to switch to a new skein of yarn?
I just don't want to switch to a new skein of yarn. I have the next one here, but it's tedious.
All right, are we done talking about best series?
No, because we haven't talked about the only series that I've read in its entirety, which is The Last Binding.
I want to catch up on this.
I need
to read the last two.
The Last Binding, that was Marvelous Light. And
yeah, speaking of that, I found someone was selling an Illumicrate for not a ridiculous. It was only $25 because normally these are selling for so much, but like.
So I stand by the feeling that I think everyone else had with the first book, having read all three of them, is that this series is better as a romance series than as a fantasy series. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I thought, they were of consistent quality throughout. I have nitpicks with each of them. One of the videos that I've been sitting around waiting to film is a series review. But definitely happy to see something, more romancy thrown in here to mix it up a bit. And since it's a completed trilogy, this is the year for it.
I just realized I have the first one on my shelf, so I can read it actually.
Yeah, I don't know. I
think the Laundry Files is the only one where I have not read a single book or even much heard.
The Laundry Files is the only one where I know I'm not going to read.
Yeah. I read a Charles Strauss book like ages ago and I did not like it, and I've just never felt the urge to pick up any of his other stuff.
What was the one that was nominated like 2013, 2014 maybe?
God, it might have been like Children of Neptune or something.
Anyway, I tried to read that one, and I think I've told the story before, but I gave up trying to read that when the female main character started having sex with the ship, and I was just like,
"What?
Nah.
What?"
You told this story last year.
Yeah.
But I'm looking it up because now I'm curious if it was the one that I read.
See, Rachel might have told the story last year, but I have lost it completely from my mind.
Neptune's Brood. I think that's the one that I read and was very meh on.
Now, I believe that was also like back during the beginning of the Sad Puppy years and everything, and some stuff was being nominated at that time that was definitely not to my taste. But yeah, I've had no interest in trying to read something by Strauss since that particular experience. Although I will say, kind of like what Carrie just said in the chat, I've heard great things about the early Laundry Files novels. Back in the day, I had every intention of reading them. I just could never get my hands on the first one. So it's just not really a priority for me now.
Yeah.
Also, I think this series kind of got a reboot. I think it switched publishers or something.
Yeah.
So I get the sense it's kind of like one of those never-ending series that just never has a conclusion, and I am not interested in that.
I do find it interesting that this category had 677 ballots for 228 nominees. So the nominee pool was relatively low, but there were plenty of ballots. So this one also had 79 was the lowest amount of nominations that you needed to have in order to qualify for the shortlist.
Yeah, this is one where I'm going to be really interested to see the long list.
I have this feeling that a lot of nominations in this category at this point, after a couple of years, are not eligible because people just have a hard time figuring out what is eligible or when it is eligible again.
Yeah, because you have to keep tabs on how many things were published and if they manage to fit the word count and stuff.
How do you?
And also, I'm still salty. I'm still salty as heck for the snub that Dandelion Dynasty received last year.
Oh, dude, I know.
I'm kind of currently a little bit done with this category.
So speaking of Dandelion Dynasty, not at all related, the Broken Binding is doing a new version of their Dandelion Dynasty series. I am so excited. Like, I am willing to pay UK shipping costs for that.
Well, I goddamn UK customs.
I know. Like, Broken Binding's also doing an Octavia Butler set, and I was so tempted, but I'm like, I can only justify one UK shipping thing this month, and I would rather it be the Dandelion Dynasty because I have been.
Rhea, if you want something from the UK, you've got 4 months.
I know.
I have a feeling that Joe would help you out there.
I know.
Yeah. But anyway, any other thoughts about best series?
Nah.
Nope.
All right. Next up, best graphic short story or comic. Our nominees are Beowulf, written by Zach Weinersmith, art by Boulay from First Second. Saga Volume 11 by Brian K. Vaughan, art by Fiona Staples, Image Comics. Shubeik Lubeck by Dina Mohammed from Pantheon as Your Wish is My Command. The Three Body Problem Part 1, written by Luz Shijian, written by Kai Jin. I think so. Jay Wendy Bumo, art by Kaoji Juridong, and okay. The Witches of World War II, written by Paul Cornell, art by Valeria Berzo. And Wonder Woman Historia, The Amazons, written by Kelly Sue DeConnick, art by Phil Jimenez, Jean Ha, and Nicola Scott. There were 457 ballots cast for 256 nominees. Finalists range from 25 to 151. So, Rhea, we know the number of nominees we need for Dungeon Meshi.
Yes! And next year is most likely its last year of eligibility.
We're gonna run a campaign. We're gonna run a campaign to nominate Dungeon Meshi for both best graphic story and best series.
Here's the thing. The 13th volume. Actually, if the 14th volume isn't out this year, it might be out this. But yeah, anyway, there's gonna be at least one Delicious in Dungeon volume eligible for next year's Hugos. Anyway,
this is a video idea. You should do why I love Dungeon Meshi and why you should nominate it.
Here's the thing. At the point when the series ends in the next volume, I'm gonna do a whole gush.
Okay.
Because it's insane. Anyway, not surprised that Saga is on this list once again. Personally, I think that quality of Saga has just been on a downward trajectory ever since volume 8. I
Volume
have
9
not
was
really
the
been enjoying it.
Volume 9 was the cliffhanger before the hiatus, right?
Yeah.
And
In volume
know,
7, I was already starting to have a little bit of like, okay, this is not like we're not
I
going
don't think
anywhere.
I've had that reaction. I know that's something people have said. I think for me, I've always assumed that it was going to be this really long story. So I was kind of in it for the long haul. But that being said, I have not read any of it since they came back from hiatus, so I haven't read 10 or 11, and it's because I'm kind of nervous about whether like I personally will still be into the series. Have I moved past it now or something? But
I feel like I personally have definitely kind of grown out of the series, but I think I was already growing out of it before it went on hiatus. And then when it came back, I was like, okay, I just can't find it in me to get back. Like it's just I've kind of moved past that type of story that Saga represents, I think. And that's a me thing. That's not necessarily an indicator of bad quality. It's just that, you know.
I think it's kind of a sad thing for Saga that because it is going to take so long to tell this story, the audience is very likely to start kind of aging out of it. Not in terms of like how old are you, but just, you know, moving on to other things.
Yes.
It's hard to keep up with something that goes on for so long and may have multiple 2-year hiatuses. You just never know.
Yeah, and the thing with Saga also is that there's a few volumes where I would also almost say that like the content is almost frivolous in terms of like the overarching story. At least I think that volume 7 was one of these. Where it's kind of like, okay, like there are stuff in the series that feels like filler.
Yeah.
Like if I want the like Hugo if I need to choose from the two Hugo darlings, which are Saga and Monstress, I will choose Monstress, because Monstress at least has like a clear vision of like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. Every single volume is like plodding towards that direction, and it isn't like doing these side quests like, oh, this seems interesting.
Monstrous, it's a very slow moving story, but I think it has a great track record for consistency.
Yes.
I cannot think of a single volume of Monstrous where I thought this just wasn't as good as the previous volume. I think the last one I gave 5 stars to. I was like, heck yeah, we're getting somewhere with this. So
but out of these volumes like that are nominated this year, the only ones that I have read is Saga Volume 11 and the Schubeck Lubeck, or Your Wish is My Command, and I have the rest of these aside from the 3-Body Problem, because that is not available in Finland. All the rest of them I have on hold from the library, so I need to. I'm
actually excited to read a couple of these. I've got a couple of these on hold from the library, which is nice, because there was nothing in this category I had even the slightest interest in reading last year. So
I'm excited for Wonder Woman Historia. I feel like a bad Wonder Woman fan for not.
I'm not super into that universe, but because it is the first in that series, I plan on reading it, and I can actually get it from Hoopla. So I'm going to be reading Schubeck Lubeck next. I have it checked out from the library, so I've heard it's fantastic. So I have high hopes for it.
It was really good.
Yeah.
Unless some of the other things in this category manage to like wow me, that is probably gonna be my pick.
The one that I'm curious about, because I have never heard of it and my library doesn't have it, and all that, is Beowulf, written by Zach Weinersmith.
It's middle grade.
Is it? Okay.
Which I am excited for, because I always feel like there's so many good middle grade graphic novels that don't get Hugo recognition. So I am excited to see a middle grade book on this list. even if it's one that hadn't previously been on my radar.
I'm sad that the Moth Keeper didn't make it, but at
Me
the same
too.
time, I'm hoping that in the long list I will be able to see how much I need to push for some of my faves to make it.
Yeah.
Not that I'm endorsing slates, mind you, but like, come on.
Is Wonder Woman Historia something I can pick up without having read any previous Wonder Woman?
Yes, it's
Yes.
Basically the premise is the history of the Amazons that Wonder Woman might have learned.
Okay, so like I don't have to have any previous context. Great.
No,
Perfect.
no.
Love it.
The only context
like
is like
I'm
there is the Society of Amazons that are the
Yeah.
women warriors.
The art is really cool. So they have three. So the reason there's three different artists is it's made up 3 different volumes. So Phil Jimenez, who is one of my all-time favorite Wonder Woman writers and artists, did the art for one. Jean Ha did the art for the second, and Nicola Scott, who is one of the best Nightwing butt artists out there, did the 3rd volume. Yeah. Any other thoughts about graphic story / comic?
I'm definitely going to put an interlibrary loan request in for Beowulf. Once I realized that the title was a play on
Yes.
Beowulf, I was like, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so in the vein of us reading and discussing Beowulf, I think we should do like a special we read and talk about Beowulf.
If I can find it,
Yeah.
This is one that I may have to wait for the voter packet because like my library doesn't have it.
All right. Any other thoughts?
Nothing except that I need the manga reading populace of the Hugo voting base to like mobilize. Like there's so much good SFF that is being published in the manga sphere.
No, Rhea, next year we'll coordinate our Dungeon Meshi agenda.
Yes.
I was just trying to put a hold on Wonder Woman Historia, and the NYPL's website totally died.
Thanks, Eric Adams.
Yeah.
Anyway, so moving on. Next is best related work, and the nominees are All These Worlds, Reviews and Essays by Neil Harrison, Chinese Science Fiction and Oral History Volumes 2 and 3, edited by Yang Feng, A City on Mars by Kelly Weinersmith and Zach Weinersmith, The Culture, The Drawings by Ian M. Banks, Discover X, presented by Tina Wong, and A Traveler in Time, The Critical Practice of Maureen Kincaid Speller by Maureen Kincaid Speller, edited by Nina Allen. There were 775 ballots cast for 246 nominees. Finalists range from 36 to 343. And this is one where there was a recusal. So there was the best related work for the Bigelow Dickolas Wolf Woods promotional tweets for This Is How You Lose the Time War, and they recused themselves from that.
I've got a question about something in this category because I've been aware of A City on Mars. It's one of those books that I sort of think about occasionally when I fantasize about becoming a nonfiction reader again. It's just like a science book, right? It's not like is it?
I think it's about the
speculative fiction
of...
adjacent, or is it like?
No, I think it's nonfiction about the practicality of can we, with the physical limitations we have, settle on another planet, and could we survive that way?
And do we think that sort of science book belongs in this award?
I do. Yeah. I mean, this is also completely the kind of nonfiction I love reading. I've wanted to read this book for a while. So.
Because I've also been curious about this book.
I think it has. It's definitely related to the SFF field. It being, that real world take on
On a science fiction
can we actually colonize other planets, or like Mars specifically, the way that we have envisioned it? That's such a trope, in SFF, is the settlement of Mars. I'm really curious if I might talk about terraforming as well, but yeah.
We'll see if I have it in me to read a nonfiction book this year.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot to say about this category because I have to admit that I have not really heard of any of these.
Yeah, I will say I nominated mostly video essays.
I mean, that's what I do usually. They're very accessible.
Our other agenda is getting that Princess Week's video essay nominated.
Yes.
We have an agenda. It's not a slate because we're not doing everything for everything. We're just saying, like, nominate this one specific thing for us. You can nominate other stuff, but just like include this.
I mean, I can just say that I have good taste. Believe in me.
All right. If we have no other thoughts about best related work, let's move on to best dramatic presentation long form. Our nominees are Barbie, screenplay by. Actually, I'm just going to do the titles. I'm not going to do. So we have Barbie, Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, Nimona, Poor Things, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and The Wandering Earth 2. There were 763 ballots cast for 189 nominees. Finalists range from 69, to 212.
I have seen a lot of these.
I have not. I've seen half of them, which is better than I normally do.
I really want to see Barbie.
I enjoy. Here's the thing. I enjoyed Barbie. I would not rank it highest among the ones that I've seen. That would probably be Across the Spider-Verse.
Speaking of Barbie, though, the one thing that's not on this list, it's not on this list, that I think a lot of people were expecting to be a shoo-in is Oppenheimer.
But Oppenheimer is a historical fiction biopic. I would not put it on a science fiction.
I saw some debate online about whether the Hugo voter base would feel like it belonged.
I would be offended if it was a science fiction movie, considering it deals with World War II and bombing literal countries to smithereens. Rarely do things make me be offended, but that would offend me.
The thing that I should not be surprised isn't on here, that I nevertheless slightly am. I find myself surprised not on here, is The Boy and the Heron. Like, I just would have thought that there were enough hardcore Studio Ghibli fans for whom, like, a Christmas release of a new Miyazaki film would have been, like, the biggest thing in the universe.
I am not surprised because The Boy and the Heron
I shouldn't be surprised because anime never gets nominated. However,
no, but like out of everything, like The Boy and the Heron stood a good chance. I would not be surprised to see it on the long list. But at the same time, I am of the mind that it is not the especially if people compare it to Howl's Moving Castle or Spirited Away, it does not really have that Ghibli oomph that a lot of other Miyazaki films have had previously.
I will say it is a little surprising for me that we didn't see like a full series of TV like we have in the last few years.
Yeah. Well, I think it was just such a strong year for genre movies.
Yeah.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, I actually really
happy
love that we have 2 animated movies on here.
Me too.
I'm happy to see Dungeons and Dragons under. I'm happy to see the best Chris Tribe.
Best Chris Tribe is winning. Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy Dungeons and Dragons is there. I love that Nimona is there.
The only one of these that I have seen is Nimona, and I don't think any of these have the potential to take #1 spot from Nimona for me.
The only one of these that I have not seen is Wandering Earth 2. I have seen all the others. And I think out of all of these, my vote will probably be split between Nimona and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, for me, it's the same. I don't know which of those is.
I probably need to watch them again, kind of like.
Yeah.
Because obviously I watched Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse in an airplane, so that is not the best experience of that movie. So.
Yeah, I for the most part, I'm happy with this. I think it's like, I think Poor Things is the one I'm most surprised about, to be honest.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. I'm very interested to watch it.
I saw it, but I was like very...
I
like,
don't
I'm
know
very
that I would
confused.
ever be surprised about something that's an Oscar nominee for Best Picture that is speculative making the Hugo shortlist, just because of the timing of it and how many people, regardless of what types of movies they watch, will just watch all of the Oscar nominees. And so a lot of people will have watched it in time for nominating because of that. But it is something that I'm very interested to watch, and I'm sad I missed it in theaters.
Yeah. I think, yeah, that's the one I'm most surprised at. Ramsey mentioned They Clone Tyrone would have been cool if picked. That's the one with John Boyega, Jamie Foxx, and Teyonah Parris. Megan, instead of Barbie, get a horror movie on there.
I will say that I say this as a person, I enjoyed Barbie. I have seen it a couple of times. I personally would not be mad if Barbie was not on this shortlist.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I do think that in terms of genre movies, there are some that push the envelope a little bit more than Barbie.
Yeah.
I think Barbie pushed the envelope more for like general fiction as opposed to SFF genre, if that makes sense.
Like I said, I enjoyed Barbie, but it's like not even close to the top of how I would be voting for this.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed it enough to nominate it, but of the 3 things that I nominated that are on this list, it comes third for me.
All right. Any other thoughts about long form dramatic?
I hope Suzume made it to the long list.
Well, we will find out.
Suzume is on Netflix now for anyone who needs that heads up.
Good.
Also on Crunchyroll if you don't have Netflix but have Crunchyroll.
Yes.
All right. Next up is Best Dramatic Presentation Short Form. And our nominees are Doctor Who, The Giggle, Loki, Glorious Purpose, The Last of Us, Long, Long Time, Star Trek, Strange New World, These Old Scientists, Star Trek, These Strange New Worlds, Subspace Rhapsody, and Doctor Who, Wild Blue Yonder. So, is nature healing? We have Doctor Who back on the short list.
Is this considered healing?
Can I interrupt for just a moment to point out that we've now been going for 2 hours and ask how long we're planning on going today?
We normally do 3 hours for our Hugo stuff. And looking at the remaining categories, like I think most of them we won't be talking about too much because it's like artists and editors.
Yeah. So we're getting to the categories that we might skip.
Yeah. I will say, so for this, I'm probably going to be doing Subspace Rhapsody as my top vote just because like, one, I really like Strange New Worlds as a series. I think it does a really good job of modernizing Trek, but also feeling really true to kind of that episodic nature that TNG had. And I think in terms of it being a musical episode, Subspace Rhapsody is just perfection. I actually like it more than Once More with Feeling, which I think is a little blasphemous, but I think it just does such a good job of using the idea of musicals, of like in musicals you sing when you have too much to speak, so you sing instead. and they're like the music itself is so great. Celia Rose Gooding is an amazing vocalist, and I'm so glad that they got to have like a really good solo number. Yeah, so Subspace Rhapsody is my top choice.
For me, it's gonna be The Last of Us. I like The Last of Us. Like last year, I like that was one of the standout things that I watched, and even with my crippling fear of zombies, I managed to watch it. So that is probably gonna be, and I think I nominated one of the Last of Us episodes as well. The second probably, I'm torn because I don't want to support Loki in any way after the whole AI art debacle, but at the same time,
There was an art debacle with Loki.
yes,
It
Loki's
wasn't just the other Marvel show, or was it?
Loki's promotional art had accusations and pretty credible accusations of using AI in the promotional. Like if you see the promotional material for Loki, it is quite obvious. It is quite obvious. It is the same as with the other series. What was the other series? The one with Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh,
yeah, that one had the AI intro sequence.
Yeah. But yeah, Loki was the first. Loki was the first with the AI controversy, and it was much more low key because it wasn't a whole intro animation. But Loki's second season was good. I did enjoy it. It's just that it's a little bit tainted with the whole
that's fair.
Disney using AI generative art, like art in very loose quotes.
I'm not going to watch any of these series, sorry.
Okay, but Star Trek Strange New Worlds is so good.
I have never watched any Star Trek.
That's fine. You don't need to watch, like...
I don't have whatever streaming service it's on. What streaming service is
Paramount Plus.
I don't have it.
Okay, so here's the thing I actually really like about what they've been doing with that is they have been releasing them physically. So they do release them on DVD. So there's a really good chance your library has them on DVD.
So wait, can I watch Star Trek Strange New Worlds with no previous Star Trek?
Yes.
I think so.
This is good information for me to
like it ties in with Star Trek Discovery, but I haven't seen Star Trek Discovery, and they kind of give you like a quick summary of like the relevant things you need to know.
Okay. So then maybe I'll watch the Star Trek.
It's really good. I really like all the characters.
And is this season the one that's nominated already out on DVD?
Yeah, they just released it. My friend got the Steelbook.
And how many seasons are there?
2.
So I only have to watch 2 seasons to get caught.
And the seasons themselves are really short. I think it's like 10 to 12 episodes. They're like not long seasons.
Okay. Because I am a person who watched like 2 episodes of the original Star Trek series and was like, fine, I know what this is. I'm done. Like a long time ago.
I would also say that you should watch the Last of Us because if I remember correctly.
See, I think this is also what streaming platform is that on?
HBO.
Oh, I have it, but I was planning on canceling it soon. But I don't think I can do the zombies. I really
want to see The Last of Us, but I cannot watch that alone. I'm also not into zombies and kind of anything that's too suspenseful or scary.
It was really scary, but this specific episode that is nominated, you could potentially watch as a standalone because it focuses on it's a little bit more removed from the main plot of the series. It ties into it, but out of all of the episodes, you could watch this by itself, and this episode does not have zombies as much. Like there's references to zombies, but it's like a biopic of these 2 specific characters and their like life together.
Okay, I will consider it.
And if you want the context, it's only the 3rd episode in the entire season. So like.
So I only have to watch 2 episodes to get to it. I can just stop watching the season after that.
Basically.
Okay.
Like if you need the context, you only need to watch 2 episodes prior.
Okay. So I can watch 3 episodes of The Last of Us and then cancel HBO.
Basically, unless you want to watch the entire season afterwards. It's a really good show, though. Pedro Pascal for the win.
Mm-hmm. So, next thing we have to talk about is one I think Ray and I will have a lot of feelings on. And it is Best Gamer Interactive Work, the first official one. So our nominees are Alan Wake 2, developed by Remedy Entertainment, published by Epic Games. Baldur's Gate 3, produced by Larian Studios. Chants of Sennaar, developed by Rundisk, published by Focus Entertainment. Dredge, developed by Black Salt Games, published by Team 17. The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, produced by Nintendo. And Star Wars Jedi Survivor, developed by Respawn Entertainment, published by Electronic Arts. There were 334 ballots cast for 165 nominees. Finalists range 26 to 157. So, I will say, and Rhea, I know you're going to be mad at me for saying this. As much as I love Baldur's Gate 3, considering I just literally finished up my 2nd playthrough yesterday, my top vote is Jedi Survivor because
I was gonna assume that you most likely are in the Star Wars bandwagon.
So here's the thing, like Baldur's Gate 3 is like my 2nd pick, but I think in terms of like overall story, Jedi Survivor did a lot more for me because I think because it isn't an RPG and it didn't have that kind of 3rd act fall off, I think Baldur's Gate had to a certain extent. I think it works so much better for me. And Cal Kestis is baby boy. Him and Marin are my favorite bi for bi het couple. Nashir Dalal as Bode. I have a lot of feelings about. Deborah Wilson as Sarah was just so good. And it has my favorite droid, BD1. So.
Before I get to my Baldur's Gate 3 hype, I will say, yay, Finland on the ballot for Hugo Awards. Remedy Entertainment represent. Torilla tavataan and so on. So Alan Wake 2 is obviously nominated. I'm very happy about that. I'm too scared to play it. I have watched playthroughs of it because then I can hide behind the blanket. But I can't play Alan Wake 2 by myself. I'm too much of a coward. Because it gets really high tension because you're basically it's a horror game, and it's very much has that sinister tension all around. Like you're kind of just like moving through darkness and like using a flashlight to like investigate stuff. So and supernatural happenstances are happening all around you. So it's very creepy. Would recommend though, in terms of if you like that sort of thing, very like kind of like science fiction-y type of like Silent Hill vibes. I would say in Alan Wake. But yay, Finland on the ballot. Doesn't happen too often. And then obviously Baldur's Gate 3. That's gonna be my pick. Baldur's Gate 3 has managed to basically keep me in serotonin for the last 4 to 5 months. Every time I have started to succumb to an episode of Depresso, I like that game has single-handedly pulled me out of the pits. So it's great. It's basically D&D / dating simulator. And as someone who really appreciates dating simulators, this makes me very happy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying, like, I really enjoyed it, and had Jedi Survivor not been on the ballot, it would be my first choice. Jedi Survivor had a plot twist that kind of had me staring at the wall for a little bit. And I mean that complimentary, like I needed time to process, which is why I was like just looking at the wall being like, oh shit.
Did you? I recently discovered that apparently there is such a thing as Asterion to Gale pipeline in terms of like you start romancing Asterion and then in your next playthrough you move on to Gale, and I'm like, no, no, this can't be happening because
Okay,
I
so
have
I will
already
say,
started contemplating.
I like for fun, I rolled up one of my main D&D characters. I'm not sure I'm going to do a full playthrough with her. And I don't know who I'd be romancing for that, but I also started a Karlach playthrough and I'm 100% romancing Minthara because like, is she evil? Yes. Is she hot? Also, yes.
Yes.
Like,
does she have the best, like the huskiest voice available? Yes.
her voice is like,
yes. I will.
It's an honorary cat.
It's Ava.
Ava.
I will say that I don't know if I would have the mental fortitude to romance Gale, but if it will happen, I will do it on an Asterion origin playthrough so that I can play Asterion who romances Gale, because that would be hilarious. Because in my current playthrough with my tab, Asterion and Gale are sort of like rivals / enemies. They constantly bicker, like bicker with each other and are just hostile towards each other.
yeah.
So I just think that dynamic as a romance would be kind of
I will
fun.
say, like, my first playthrough, I avoided using Gale, but that was because I was a bard and so could like do a lot of the casting that I might need a wizard for. But my last playthrough, because I was a paladin, I had Gale in my party almost all the time. Like it was almost always my paladin, Gale, and Shadowheart, and then I would swap out the fourth member. It was mostly Asterion, but sometimes I'd be like, you know what? I need hot evil drow lady in my party. Let's get her.
Here's the thing. The one thing that really made me dislike Gale is that because I'm also playing a bard and my bard is pretty adept at sorcery, and to have that scene of Gale mansplaining magic to me was kind of too much.
Oh yeah.
Like, you need to understand the weave, and I'm like, Gale, I can also do magic, you piece of shit. But yeah, the next up, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Very happy to have this here. Basically, I think my top 2 is probably Baldur's Gate 3 and Legend of Zelda. Like those are the 2 games that I have played the most.
Yeah. Anyone else have thoughts about best game or interactive work?
No.
All right. Moving right along then. This is what I don't think we'll have a lot to say about, but it is Best Editor Short Form. And our nominees are Scott H. Andrews, Neil Clark, Lou Wagia, Jonathan Strahan, Lynn N. Thomas, and Michael Damian Thomas in Young Fan. There were 530 ballots cast for 179 nominees. Finalists range from 40 to 146 ballots.
I was like Jonathan Strahan at least released the Book of Witches anthology.
Yeah.
Which I have, and I have read like a couple of stories from. So I'm very happy to see him on this list. Also Neil Clark.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, if there are no more thoughts about Best Editor Short Form, next is Best Editor Long Form, and that is Roshi Chen, Lindsay Hall, Lee Harris, Kelly Lonesome, David Thomas Moore, and Yao Haijun. There were 254 ballots cast for 103 nominees. Finalists range from 16 to 81. And this is one where we had another recusal. It was Natasha Barden.
I will be honest and say that the only one of these names that I recognize is Roshi Chen.
Yeah, Lee Harris also does Tor, and like he's responsible for the Locked Tomb, which thank you, but there are also some things that he edits. I'm just like, I want to know the thought process behind the acquisition. And yes, I am referring to KM Sparsa.
Wait. I'm sorry. You're referring to what?
The author who wrote Docile and First Become Ashes.
Oh, okay.
Lee Harris was the one who did that. So yeah, there are some like yes, but also let's not. All right. Well, if there are no thoughts or comments, best professional artist. Here
Yay!
we have Michaela Alcaino, Ravina Kai, Galen Dara, Dan Dos Santos, Tristan Elwell, and Alyssa Winans. There were 270 ballots cast for 219 nominees. Finalists range from 17 to 66 ballots.
17.
I know.
I haven't done my research into some of these people yet to see like what they did and who they are.
So I nominated Michaela Alcaino, and I'm actually like, I don't know if anyone was following this, but like she does a lot of work for Illumicrate and Fairy Loot. And so Fairy Loot announced they were doing a special edition of Throne of Glass, and that she was the artist for the redesigned covers and the sprayed edges. And people the Sarah J. Maas fandom is like a nightmare. Day.
Is anybody surprised?
And they're just like, they're like, oh my God, you copied these edges from someone else and they look better. Like, how dare you call yourself a fan? The stag here is brown and it's supposed to be white. Why does this castle look like it's made of wood? Like, she was getting a lot of harassment on her page. And it's like, okay, calm yourself down. Like, you don't think that Sarah, okay, I do think it's possible that Sarah J. Maas's team were like, yeah, it's fine. They're, people are going to give us their money anyway. We don't give a shit. But yeah, it was a lot. So I am glad that she got nominated because, like I said, that fandom's a nightmare on a good day.
I'm just like, in terms of from a fan perspective, I'm just wondering, like, I don't think I care enough about any single piece of media where I would act like this. Even when I was a teenager, when I was the most plausibly would have been riled up to these kinds of shenanigans, I don't think even then I like what is the thought process that goes into the mind that you have to go and be like, I'm gonna write some shit on this person's page? Like, what?
I have no idea. It was just,
they have no emotional regulation.
It was, like I said, it was just like from someone who's not in that fandom, who like had no plans on touching that series. Like, anyway, it was interesting in a horrifying way to watch.
Yeah, I mean, every single time someone gets like overwhelming negative like feedback, and then also like sometimes threats and stuff, I'm just here like, why? Anyway, Rovina Kai, yay!
Yeah, I'm happy about her as well.
I'm very happy to see Rovina Kai and Alyssa Winans. I nominated Alyssa Winans.
I also nominated Alyssa Winans.
I also really enjoy Galen Dara's stuff, though I haven't kept up with her work in the past couple of years. So, yeah.
Dan Dos Santos is the only one, I think, out of this ballot that I do not immediately know or do not immediately have like a vision of what their work is like.
Oh,
Does he work with
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That-
Now I see. Yes.
I recognize some of these book covers.
Yes.
Oh, hey, South Carolina did a run and they're beating Iowa by 9. Sorry, women's basketball final is happening right now, so I'm like keeping an eye on the score because I really want South Carolina to win and have an unbeaten season.
Yeah, Dan Dos Santos did the cover for Son of the Storm by Sui Davis Okumbola.
Yeah.
Oh, he does
Back
the
in the
Mercy
day.
Thompson books.
Mercy Thompson?
Yeah,
Oh, I did not
at
know
least the
that.
ones in the U.S. He does. I don't think he does the UK versions.
Interesting. Alyssa Vinans obviously does the covers for Nevo stuff, and
Mhm.
also a lot of illustrations for Tor.com, like the
Mhm.
novelettes and stuff.
I'm happy with this short list. I don't really have any complaints. All right, are we ready to move to Semiprozine?
Yes.
All right. Best Semiprozine. Our nominees are, I'm just going to list the titles. I'm not reading all the editors. Our nominees are Escape Pod, Faya Literary Magazine, Giga Notosaurus, Correo, Strange Horizons, and Uncanny Magazine. There were 338 ballots cast for 82 nominees. Finalists range from 32 to 159. And once again, I am praying for Uncanny to start recusing themselves.
They're never gonna do that.
I know.
They are never gonna do
They
that.
might do it one of these days.
I am very happy now that Faya and Choreo have started to have such a presence that they are consistently getting on the shortlist. I am very happy about this.
I want one of them to win this year. I don't want Uncanny to win for the upcoming.
See, this is my problem with Uncanny, is that it's like, how many years do they have to like not only get on the shortlist but to win before they're like, I think we have enough of these rockets?
I don't think there is enough. I think the rationale has always been that they want their supporting team to get recognition as well.
Yeah, but that does not make any sense. They only get the one rocket.
No, I think all
their other editor would get it too.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm just annoyed with Uncanny, but otherwise I'm really happy with the list. I think it's a good list.
I have not read anything from Giganotosaurus, so that is gonna be a new thing for me. Escape Pod obviously have read before, via Literary Magazine, Choreo, Strange Horizons, and of course Uncanny as well. I'm just thinking like Anathema or Mermaids Monthly or other semi-prozines that could have a spot as well. Yeah. Maybe
anyway,
someday.
Yeah.
When hell freezes over.
Any other thoughts about best semi-prozine?
We are deep into the part of the ballot where I just don't have.
Well, we only have 4 more categories to talk about. So we're on track to hopefully finish by our 3-hour timeline.
Like, I just don't have anything to say about any of the categories that are left.
All right, moving on to Best Fanzine. Our nominees are Black Nerd Problems, The Full Lid, Idea, Journey Planet, Nerds of a Feather Flock Together, and the unofficial Hugo Book Club blog. There were 286 ballots cast for 80 nominees. Finalists range from 20 to 70 ballots. I will say I am friends with one of the editors at Nerds of a Feather, so I am very happy for them. They've won in the past. Other than that, I don't really have any other thoughts.
I've read, so Black Nerd Problems, they came out with a book a couple of years ago, which I have read. I think it was basically their episodes turned into essays. It was interesting, but not. I think it was way more about like superhero fandom and stuff. So,
I have read unofficial Hugo book club blog for some time, and sometimes I think that they do really well, and other times I am in complete disagreement, which is healthy, I think, to have that.
I would say I am sad that the rec list still has not been nominated because I do really like the rec list.
I have not heard of the idea before, so that will be interesting to find out what that is about. Black Nerd Problems I have read previously, and obviously the full lead as well. I've dabbled.
Yeah. All right. Well, if we don't have any other thoughts, let's move on to Best Fan Cast. And I do have some thoughts here. So Best Fan Cast, our nominees are The Coode Street Podcast, presented by Jonathan Strahan and Gary K. Wolfe. Hugo's There, presented by Seth Heasley. Octothorpe by John Coxon, Allison Scott, and Liz Batty. Publishing Rodeo, presented by Sunyi Dean and Scott Drakeford. Science Fiction Fans Booma. Production team is Booma, Liu Lu, and Liu Chang. And World Building for Masochists, presented by Marshall Ryan Maresca, Rowena Miller, Cass Morris, and Natania Barron. There were 693 ballots cast for 230 nominees. Finalists range from 28 to 104. So,
I think Publishing Rodeo, I think, is for the first time.
Yes.
In the ballot.
But overall, my thoughts are I think there should be two separate categories for this. One is for authors who are doing podcasts, and the other is for like other types of fan cast. Because I think for me, what's annoying about Fancast is it's a lot of people who are already doing publishing, and it's like not something like Desi Geek Girls or Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men or like non-authors.
Yes, I mean we have previously had all of these discussions before with our thoughts on how to improve the fan cast, and it's like the whole idea of like what counts as like professional work and all of that, and like who like are we then gatekeeping the term fan and stuff? It's every single time we have this conversation, but at the same time I think there is a very significant difference is like if you have a lot of industry connections and all of this stuff, you are still a fan, you're still participating in fan activity, but you are essentially like moving from a complete different playing field than someone who is just recording in their room with a phone and just their like enthusiasm.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, I'm like, Fancast is a category that I wish I was more enthused about, but like, I just don't really care about any of the nominees.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that like the Publishing Rodeo I might check out because that's some that I have not heard of before. Other than that, I have watched some of the Coode Street podcast, and it's fine.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the stuff in Fancast category that gets to the shortlist is not usually the stuff that I gravitate towards in terms of when I'm like looking at stuff that interests me in this type of category.
Yeah, agreed. Any other thoughts? Or are we
I
ready?
feel like I'm sort of at a point beyond particularly caring about the Fancast category. I don't know.
Well,
I mean, it's like if you have sit down like kind of interviews, for example, about and have like author interviews. I kind of in my mind I kind of separate those to a different category from Fanny's activity, because when I think about Fanny's activity, it's more about like having, I don't know how to explain it, but it's less formal, if that makes sense. Usually, if you have like this kind of industry professional sitting down and talking about stuff, it has a sense level of formality to it that I think separates it from like a more grassroots fan endeavor, if that makes sense.
No, that does.
I did always love Tea and Jeopardy, even though like it was mainly like an interview podcast, but it was so well done. It had an ongoing narrative, it had characters, it worked the interviews into the narrative. And I don't think that there has been a nominee since quite like that in Fancast.
I think if I can say one thing, I would just reiterate what I think is exactly the same thing I said last year, which is that like I think all of us have different things that we enjoy that are eligible in the Fancast category, and that there's a really broad range of really interesting stuff out there that different people can be into that's technically eligible in this category, that we just never see on this type of shortlist.
Yeah.
I will say that maybe this will be the year when I look at the Fancast long list and will actively go through like what people have been nominating and like checking it out. Because I kind of am also at the point where I need to put my mouth where my, what's the word? Well, how does the saying go?
Money where your mouth is?
Yeah, that.
I will say I'm like interested to see if Stitch and Bitch made the long list.
Who was it? Ramsey last time said that we might be a little bit too spicy for the Hugos.
Are we?
We criticize Hugo so much.
Are we spicy?
We have opinions.
That's what Ramsey said. I have to kind of agree.
We have opinions that are not always positive.
We are probably more outspoken and blunt about our opinions because we are not industry professionals.
Yes,
we are not. You know, I mean, if you're doing a podcast with other professionals speaking about other professionals in your field, there are things you're just not going to talk about because you have relationships to maintain, and I completely understand that. And
you don't shit where you eat.
Yeah, basically, if you're like, your whole thing is that you have built these industry connections and stuff, you still want to maintain those connections. You don't want to go and like too heavily criticize stuff.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I kind of want to see more like true grassroots fan productions in Fancast, because I want the unfiltered thoughts. I want to hear what fandom is saying, not necessarily what professionals are saying about each other.
I do like Ramsey's
content. Polite about things, you know, and you know, within reason, but
I try, but usually I have trouble censoring my true feelings.
I know. Me too.
Anyway, any other thoughts about Fancast?
No, not really. I will say that I am happy to see a non-English Fancast on the list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Was this a category where something was deemed ineligible due
Let
to
me-
Yes.
Yeah. So
There-
best Fancast, DU Sci-Fi Radio is a professional production.
Yeah. And then another one was also eligible in, not only was it a professional production, but it was also eligible in related work.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so many booktubers try to pivot to being authors, so play it boring on their casts.
I don't think any of us have ambitions of being authors.
No.
The only reservation I have is that I would like to not be shunned at Worldcon. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well.
None of us have done anything to get shunned at Worldcon. Have we?
The only thing I will apologize for is that I have been a little bit spicy towards Kieran Gillen in my opinions about Kieran Gillen's work in the past, and I still stand by everything that I have said.
Yeah, I will say I will stand by, like, despite the fact, and I like this still annoys me to no end, that I ended up really enjoying the Skullomance series by the end of it. I will still, like, I will not apologize for dragging Naomi Novik for accepting those nominations. Like, I am saying that as someone who ultimately enjoyed the series.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we move on to best fan writer?
Yes, second to last one. So best fan writer. Our nominees are Bitter Corella, James Davis Nichol, Jason Sanford, Alistair Stewart, Paul Weimer, and Orjan Weston. There were 363 ballots cast for 134 nominees. Finalists range from 27 to 134 ballots. And this is another instance where it is really fucking white with this category.
It is. So I don't follow fan writers. I am aware of some of these people because of commentary in the field. If I had to guess as to what we will see when the winners come out, my money is on Paul Weimer or Jason.
Same.
I agree with that.
My money is on Paul Weimer, specifically because I think he's most likely on people's minds due to the controversy because of last year's.
No, Nepal and Tibet, practically the same.
And this is not to diss on anyone's writing ability or anything, but the truth is that in terms of like psychology, if you are on the top of people's minds, people are most likely to vote for that person.
I probably
especially if there's an emotional investment in their story.
I probably won't vote in this category just because I'm not familiar enough to really genuinely judge, my opinion. But if I were, I would probably vote for Jason Sanford just because I have actually read some of his stuff, and
I really appreciate the work he does for the genre.
Yeah, his genre grapevine thing has been of great interest to me this past year.
I also I will say I'm not particularly fond of James Davis Nichol. He does a lot of like lists for Tor.com or Reactor Magazine now, and I don't like his list selection, and that's just like a very personal thing. I think his choices are not great.
I used to read his blog back when I was really deep into my Hugo and Nebula reading project, and I was reading a lot of older SFF. And he was doing, he may still be doing it, a series about young people read old SFF. And I found myself internally raging about his theories of why people didn't like things. And so I had to stop reading. I was like,
this does not spark joy.
I will say that out of all of these writers, the only one that I have any like knowledge of has been Bitter Corella.
Midnight Society.
What did they do?
So she does the Midnight Society Twitter account, which I do enjoy.
Oh, I didn't know. Oh,
I don't know what that is.
So it's basically an account that will, like, the premise is it's these horror writers and they'll like tell stories, and like there's certain like running themes, like
It'll be like real writers, but like
Yeah.
from throughout history, current people as well as like historical figures.
Yeah, there'll probably be some excerpts in the voter packet, I think.
Yeah, and they're Twitter threads, and like sometimes some other random author will like jump in and join the commentary.
Yeah, unfortunately, now with the rebranding of Twitter, it is very hard to like keep tabs on any of the fan writers who were mostly in there.
Really
previously.
enjoy the micro SFF stories that who's the nominee who writes those?
Kelsey, I have to ask, are you in a snuggie?
No, I'm just in a blanket.
Ah, okay.
And I put the hat back on top of my blanket.
You know, sometimes we do, because sometimes those things get nominated for best
or related work.
And they win.
I mean, imagine
that Jason Sanford and Charles and Chris Barkley did is going to be on.
Yeah, the whole expose of the Chengdu voting controversy is gonna be nominated for best. And also, I think that if the file 77 if file 770 is not nominated in some category for some of their coverage that they, because basically last year everything and also this year everything that I have read about everything that's been going on with the Chengdu Worldcon, I read through file 770 because they were writing about it.
I don't know if they renominated. Aren't they like permanently?
They recused from best
recuse. Like,
so I have a feeling like some of their stuff might end up on best related work, and maybe one of their writers will end up on best fan writer.
I mean, I still maintain that the all-time best Hugo's drama is still Jeanette Ng's like acceptance speech, which ended up renaming the entire award.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The Korean stuff is the stuff that keeps on giving.
I
don't know what that is.
So basically, I can give you the rundown once we end the stream.
Yeah, not now, not here.
No, we have one more category left. So the next category we have is Best Fan Artist, and our nominees are Ian J. Clarke, Sarah Felix, Dante Luis, Layla Rose, Allison Scott, and Espana Sheriff. There were 180 ballots cast for 96 nominees. Finalists range from 16 to 43 ballots.
I'm very happy that Leah Rose is on this. I have nominated her before, so.
I am not familiar with any of these people, but I'm excited to look into them.
So I actually know Leah Rose's stuff more from back in the day when she actually did some art for book covers, which would be, I think, professional work. But I really like her art style.
Usually when I have not a lot to say on a given category, I'm just using that category as a bouncing board to basically find out what the people do.
Yeah.
But I'm honestly like, this is my problem each year, is that there's a discrepancy I have with my involvement in the sort of professional categories, especially the fiction categories versus all of the fan categories, because I want to be more involved and knowledgeable with the fan categories, but also there's this like whole like because there's so much, like how do you even begin to find out like where everything is happening and what is being published where and what is eligible where and all of this stuff. So it sometimes feels a little bit daunting even to try and find out like who are even eligible in the best fan artist category, because to me like like it I know the like rules for the nomination, like the Hugo Award nomination, but like in my mind a fan artist is anyone who publishes their art and in a non-professional setting. but then there's like this specific rules for Hugo Awards specifically, like where they have to have published something in a fanzine or something.
Like back in the days when most everyone was on Twitter, you could kind of rely on people who thought they were eligible and wanted to be considered doing like eligibility posts sort of all in one place. And that's just not true this year anymore.
I will say part of the reason I really appreciate the work that Nerds of a Feather does is they do like some pretty in-depth like editor picks, especially for like not lesser known, but for categories that don't get the same buzz as the fiction categories.
Because honestly, if like for me, for example, I would nominate someone like Wolfie the Witch for their Epic the Musical animatics or something, but because the way the rules are structured, they would not be eligible in this category because they self-publish on their own page and they like are not publishing in any fan publication.
All right. Any final thoughts about Best Fan Artist?
I wish I knew more.
Yeah. Well, in that case, we have finished in little under 3 hours.
Woo.
Us, very efficient this year. So yeah, those are our thoughts on the shortlist. I will put the link to the shortlist on the Hugo website, and I might try and do chapters on this video to make navigating for anyone playing catch up a little easier. We'll see how that goes. Yes.
Mia and Jay Clark, who is nominated for Best Fan Artist, is doing the Hugo Award base design this year.
Ooh. Cool. Yeah. So anyway, thank you all so much for joining us. We will be having our normal Stitch and Bitch, where we will be catching up on all the things we've been reading, watching, and playing on my channel next week at our usual time. It will not be 3 hours long. It will be our normal 2 hour stream. So thank you again, and we will chat with you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.